Welcome to the LowCarbUSA podcast, where we seek to inspire you to help us build this community. I'm Doug Reynolds.
And this is Pam Devine.
Okay, this morning I'm here with Dr. Mo Saint Martin, and he's a family physician from Ontario. Dr. Mo came to our very first event in 2016 in San Diego, and he came with, there was 5 of you, right, from your
That's
family,
correct.
And have been massive supporters of our events since then. There's always been at least 1 or 2 of them at any our events in Florida, every one of them that's been here in San Diego. But this year they brought the whole family. There were like 14 of them came this year, so that's been really awesome to see the whole lot of you.
Oh, thank you.
But Dr. Mo, as I seem to remember, you were already exposed to the keto conversation by the time you came to San Diego the first time.
Yes, I mean, my journey is probably at least 15 years long, and I've got a personal weight loss of 140 pounds. So you have to remember that as a physician, I was labeled by society as being overweight because I ate too much and I was lazy.
Mm-hmm.
I failed to understand how I could be lazy when I was in med school, playing university football, married, father of 3 kids, and working part-time. But, I'm still supposed to be lazy because I don't exercise enough. And unfortunately, the standard American diet, which was pushed through med school, and in fact, through med school, we had 4 hours of nutrition class, that's it. The cornerstone of our management for chronic diseases is pills, pills, pills.
Mm-hmm.
And something really hit me a few years ago with Dr. William Davis when he wrote his book on Doctored. He said, there's no ham in hamburger, there's no health in healthcare. And by that, I think he meant that follow the money, follow where the influence is. And you realize that, unfortunately, the guidelines and my profession are really, really controlled by a lot of these features. And we've been blessed by having LowCarbUSA and the keto world coming together, and that's probably the best thing that you and Pam have done is be able to keep this low carb keto family together and not infight and so on. And it's given myself and other physicians, clinicians of all sorts who want to treat chronic diseases, the weapons that we need. Because until Andreas presented yesterday, for example, that there's 31 random controlled trials supporting low carb, high fat versus the low fat, high carb models, 31-0. And yet the guidelines still don't reflect that. So there's some cognitive dissonance, as Gary Topp mentions. And he's also been one of your regular speakers, and I've had the opportunity to meet him and talk to him. And that's the beauty of your forum.
Yeah, the fact that we're able to reach physicians like you and help you guys to take it to your patients has been, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest achievement that we've kind of been able to make since we started this. When we first started it, we thought we just wanted to put on some kind of conference to give the scientists and researchers, a platform to present this information to you. But the community, everything's evolved since then.
It has morphed into so much more.
Yeah,
and I think Dr. Seeds yesterday in his talk on addiction and how it impacts diabetes and obesity just reflects the fact that we need a family, we need a tribe, as Mrs. Reifland talked about in the management of this real serious addiction problem that we have. And it truly is. And processed foods are the biggest problem that our society currently has. And they're lobbied like crazy at the government level by the tobacco industry, which now controls the bulk of the food industry.
And just on a personal note, I know that your whole family has gone through an enormous transformation since you've discovered this whole keto thing. So maybe tell us a bit about that.
Well, sure. I mean, when I first came here, I came here with my 2 daughters, daughter-in-law, and my wife. I realized that it's a matriarchal society in my family, at least. And if I was going to have the boys and the 6 grandkids get on board, I needed to get the moms on board. And that was the reason for bringing them here the first time. And they each had their own aha moments. I know Leanne, my eldest daughter, who has the biggest weight problem, her big moment was realizing that, yeah, she does have an addiction problem. And Karen Thompson was amazing to have here as one of your initial speakers. Mm-hmm. And she's been able to reach out and contact her ongoing. And that's the beauty of this forum. You're able to go toe to toe and meet and talk to some of these world leaders in the keto world.
I think that's the most amazing thing, is that that even I'm surprised at often, is how accessible these people are. They're just sitting on a chair in the corridor somewhere. You know?
Yeah, well, they're not just accessible. They're amazingly humble. Mm-hmm. You know, they blush when people ask to have their photos taken with them, and you know, it's just a reflection of who they are. And I think it's a reflection of the fact that they realize that they all have their own struggles and there's frailty within all of us. And that's the beauty part of this.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Dr. Robert Sivers,
mm-hmm.
And I think he's just becoming a powerhouse in this environment. And he has a way of putting things that just resonates with people.
And that's because he's lived the problem.
That was what I was going to totally.
And that's been my, probably the greatest thing for me is having lost 140 pounds, kept it off for 15 years, having struggled with all of the problems that we have had in the past, but now I'm armed with information that will protect me against my own college. You know, you've got people like Dr. Fetsky down in Australia, New Zealand way, who got reported by dietitians for giving nutritional advice as an orthopedic surgeon, or Tim Noakes in South Africa, who were again having to go through 2-3 years of legal issues to clear his name because of nutritional advice. So now we're being supported, and this community is worldwide and coalescing to provide more and more information to arm us, because you know, we are at risk when we try to give the best advice to our patients. But Dr. Sieves, myself, having had the weight problems, and as Dr. Sieves mentioned yesterday, he's lost 100 pounds, but he's had 2 or 3 relapses where he's put on 30 pounds. I've not been any different. The biggest part is the last 5 or more years, there's not been a bump up in the weight. So I think I've got it under control.
You think you're beaten.
But like an alcoholic, I'm only 1 drink away.
Yeah.
And that's where it's so important to have people around you that are like-minded and who will support you. And that's why my family needs to come to your family and become a bigger tribe and get that kind of support.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming. I mean, it's always amazing to see you guys, and like every time there's more of you, and it's just a pleasure to interact with your family. And yeah, I mean, I just want to say thanks for being a part of the solution. You know, you're taking it to your patients, and Leanne's doing the same, right? Monique's the doctor.
Yes, my second daughter was a teacher for 8 years, and has herself struggled with weight. My whole family has, and she's now, you know, a champion for this, and diet doctor and so on. And we're bringing it to our patients, and we're getting amazing results. But what we've realized through Dr. Sieves and Iflan and Karen Thompson is that it's not enough to just give it one intervention or a 5-minute here or 5-minute there. There has to be that ongoing support.
Right.
And I think what we've learned through this meeting is that we're going to have to develop something even greater that's going to give Facebook, Instagram some kind of support that's going to have to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're going to have to increase the tribe. So I'm going to have to marry into other tribes and see if we could use their platforms, if it's already established, to move forward. And the other part too is learning about the physician, medical practitioner support group that you're going to be creating. I'm so eager, I can't wait to be here so that I can learn more and I can share more information and hopefully have this core group of people go out and spread the word.
That's awesome. Yeah. So maybe I can, sit down with, maybe we should do it with everyone here at some point, just have a little feedback session or something, because we've established or published now the clinical guidelines, which I think is a massive achievement. But it's not a standard of care. It's just a document. And as much as it's already turning out to be a lot of value to a lot of physicians, as I said, it's not a standard of care. And the standard of care is a consensus. It's an intangible thing.
Correct.
And the only way that we can establish that is to have conversation and for people to discuss things, often disagree, and that's a good thing, because no one should be here to just toe the line, right?
No, and that's the form that you've allowed, the platform you've allowed created, is for interdisciplinary groups or members to meet, agree and disagree in a respectful way. Families often argue,
right,
but they don't draw blood, and they respect each other, and that's what's happening here. So you can get a Robert Sieves, who's a bariatric surgeon, know more about food addiction than a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and he can go and tell Dr. Andreas Enfeld that he's wrong, because Dr. Enfeld said, "I don't eat carbs." Well, Dr. Sieves' answer was, "I try not to eat carbs every day,"
right,
because he's an addict. I'm one alcoholic drink away, if I'm an alcohol, from a relapse. And people that don't have that problem don't appreciate it. And that's why I think myself and Dr. Sieves and other people who have had the struggle understand and bring a different perspective. My job as a family doc is to bring all of that information together, process it, and try to bring it back in a 101 way for my patients to understand. Because my dad was a miner, always told me, he said, "It doesn't matter how much information you have. It's not what you say that counts, what I hear." And people really don't care about what you've got to say in your message until they know that you truly care.
right.
Well, people that have had this struggle do care, and patients sense that right away.
Yeah.
So I think we bring a different perspective, and that's nice. But not everybody has to go through our struggles to still be very effective in the dissipation of this.
Yes, well, and that's where we're hoping over time that we're able to reach people like that, because right now, almost every single doc that's taken this on board has done so because they've had some kind of personal breakthrough themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've experienced for themselves, and they've often clandestinely done it just because they heard about it, but it's not an accepted practice, right?
That's right.
And then it works out brilliantly for them, and then they think, oh, okay, so this is real.
And a lot of these docs have had patients come back to them.
Yes.
And he'll say, "Well, I don't understand what you're doing, but keep doing it." Because your blood work is all
Right.
so much better.
Yeah.
How they've normalized. But we're still lipophilic obsessed, and we're still LDL obsessed, and there's still physicians out there who will try to grasp one number and not understand the whole picture.
Mm.
It's like Nasha Winters yesterday in her talk, when somebody had a snippet, and they said, "Well, I'm not supposed to eat fried meats, and that's what I do as a keto person." And she says, "Well, your epigenetic profile says that's one thing to consider, but you need to look at the bigger picture."
Right.
And that's what we have to do, is always look at the bigger picture. Keep in mind that numbers are just there to guide us, and we can't use that as the only thing. And that's where physicians and the medical model really fails. And that's why we keep pushing statins and statins and statins. There's no doubt statins are effective in a very small population. There's no doubt, well, no, I was going to say there's no doubt that the American Food Guide could be effective, but it's only targeting 12% of the population, because it says it's only for healthy people. Well, the rest of the population is no longer healthy. And if those 12% follow the food guide, they will become unhealthy.
Right, yeah. And you mentioned something a bit earlier about you and Dr. Syvertson, that having a problem yourselves, and people that didn't have it didn't understand.
Okay.
And I think I was guilty of that myself. When I first started this, I realize now I'm not a sugar addict. I used to eat tons of chocolate and all sorts of stuff, and thought I would really struggle with it. And I stopped cold turkey and never looked back. That's what I've had to learn, is that I've had to learn to understand that.
Yeah.
Because it didn't affect me, so I didn't understand it in the beginning. I was just saying, and people are saying it's not sustainable and all that, and I said, it's rubbish, man. It's like there's so much good food to eat.
Sure.
It's not a problem, but I wasn't an addict, and
That's right.
so I never struggled with
And
that.
I think where it becomes unsustainable or less sustainable is because of the external pressures that have you go into relapse. And if you do, if you're a smoker and or an alcoholic and you fall off the wagon, you've got to get back up and get back on. And it's the same with food addiction. That was my goal, is to try and see if I can extend this to my grandkids. And when I have an 11-year-old granddaughter having a keto club at school.
Yeah, I heard about that.
You
That
know,
is so awesome.
and she would actually bring sugar cubes and have them understand how many grams in a sugar cube. And if you had a tablespoon of ketchup, that was a teaspoon of sugar. So here was a sugar cube. If you had a can of Coke, she brought in, and it was 10, 12 sugar cubes, a glass of juice, and so on. And there was one of her classmates actually said, I packed my own lunch now. Because his mom just packed garbage.
Right.
So it was kind of neat that an 11-year-old could start having that impact.
That was so brilliant when I heard that story.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the solution, as I said, of helping to take this to everybody that you can reach, to your patients. And it's been a pleasure to have you and your family here this time, and we look forward to seeing you back at the next one.
Thank you, and we thank you for giving us a platform to reach out more people.
Thank you, and I'm happy. I'm glad to hear that what we're doing is providing that for you, because that was our original intent. So we're at least achieving what we set out to do.
No, I think you're far exceeding your expectations.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
So you'll notice that we haven't had any commercials at all during this podcast, and we intend to keep it like that if we possibly can. But at the same time, the work that we're doing and the efforts that we're going to get the clinical guidelines done, there's just so much to do. And in order to really, for this to be sustainable, we need your help. And so what we're asking you to do is go and take a look at our Patreon account. There's actually quite a few options there. It provides you with options to actually go onto our site, and there's membership options there where you can get access to all our video content and other perks of being a member, or even just $1 a month, become a patron. And you can find that in patreon.com/LowCarbUSA. I'll put it in the show notes and in the episode notes so that you can find it. And help us to change the world.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people take a look at the conference registrations, and I think they immediately assume that, from a distance, that these might be money-making endeavors that we're doing with these conferences. And it's hard to admit, and it's hard to tell people that we really aren't making any money from these. All 11 of the events that we've done have not been a profitable endeavor. We've literally had to dip into our credit, basically. It wasn't anything. It wasn't like we actually had a pocket to dip into and put money into. We've had to take loans and get a lot of credit for these events. So any little bit that you can help, every ticket that's sold, every little bit of $1 a month in a Patreon account will help us to fund our endeavors and fund the programs so that we continue to do some of these other things that are free content. The project management that we're doing on the clinical guidelines will really go a long way.